After destroying the One Ring on Mount Doom, we are told that Sam, Frodo and the rest of the hobbits enjoyed many adventures on their return to the Shire. And
Did they?
yeah, and we always wonder what those adventures were. Well, one of them involves traveling to Londonium and Camelot and destroy the evil Mage Tower. Now, for all of you who read the books, you know the hobbits, unlike in the movies, are actually very, very small. So if they're hiding behind somebody, you can never even see them. That is why we never see the hobbits in King Arthur.
Listen, I know our dad said that King Arthur was, Legend of the Sword was done in Lord of the Rings way, but that's taking a little bit too far even for me.
It's not, it makes sense.
Listen,
Little hobbits running around.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that is that the Lord of the Rings was written long after all the King Arthur legends. Now, having said that, after seeing the movie had more elements of Game of Thrones than Lord of the Rings. But one could easily say that there was a lot of stuff mixed up and put inside of this movie.
Well, not necessarily. Here's the thing. For the fictional tale of King Arthur and the...
Well, he's a fictional character anyway.
That's why I say for the fictional...
He was based on real, actual Arthur Pendragon person who was King of England at one point in time, but the legend of King Arthur is merely that, a legend.
A legend. Same thing as Robin Hood, even though Robin Hood did exist. But what you have here is there are always elements of the fantasy. You always had you always had Merlin the magician. You always had the Lady of the Lake, and
no, the story of Excalibur cannot be told without Lady of the Lake.
Yeah, so you have the elements of fantasy, if you would.
It is a fantasy, so
but we have never seen it like this. Some would say that the 1981 Excalibur is the best King Arthur movie. I would have to agree with that one. The first
Did you see the 2004 version of Antoine Fuqua's version?
Yes, I loved it. With Kieran, no, yeah, I did. I liked it. I loved the version. But here's the thing.
Let's not talk about First Night, please. It's a love story. It was good for what it was. It's a King Arthur story. It's not the King Arthur story that...
Then you have Sam Neill's Merlin, not the BBC Merlin.
The Hallmark miniseries. Which were really good, in my opinion.
Really good. But we have never, even with 2004 version, we haven't seen King Arthur like this.
I've only seen First Night and the Merlin.
The 2004 version is really good.
And I don't think I even saw the Disney version of Sword in the Stone even. So, listen, I grew up on these books at 12 years old when our mom signed me up for the library card in the public library. I spent days and hours just scrolling through these books, literally. Like I devoured King Arthur stories and Robin Hood and Merry Men stories. I read so many of them.
They're great tales. And they had many movie adaptations. Here's the thing about this King Arthur. The fantasy aspect of it
comes in second, I think. I mean, it's because it's a Guy Ritchie movie.
They told the story through that aspect. They kept it gritty. If you watch some of the early stuff that Guy Ritchie worked on, The Snatch, The Long Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Rock and Rolla, you see those elements in this movie.
Even Men from U.N.C.L.E. There's elements.
I mean, even Sherlock Holmes, you can see the darker tone to the movie.
Yeah.
So you see, it's a Guy Ritchie movie. And here's the thing with Hollywood. When you have a movie that has a big production budget, they expect to make money back. When they don't, all of a sudden, that is not a successful movie.
The King Arthur is gonna be written off for tax.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a tax write-off, yeah.
That happens in Hollywood. But here's the thing. Just because the movie isn't successful in the box office doesn't make it a bad movie.
Exactly.
The reason why why you have less successful movies at the box office is critics, is movie reviews who basically tell you the movie sucks. And then people say, well, the dude that reviews the movie says the movie sucks, so I'm not going to go and see it. So just because it's not a successful movie,
yeah, let's not go. That's a
just because it's not a successful movie doesn't mean it's a bad movie. The story is there. It's a funny story. They even kept it funny for some aspects.
There is so many. I haven't seen all of Guy Ritchie's movies, but
I saw most of them, except the Madonna one.
But
and I don't plan to.
But one thing he has throughout the movies, like he always has this cool guy who's kind of a leader of the pack, and then he has his gang of friends, or at least co-workers or something, and they always hang out and tell these stories. Like, so I was going down the street and I saw George. George who? Well, you know George.
Well,
this
yeah,
George, this George, that with George, our George, Kung Fu George, Chinese George, the Warrior George. Okay, keep going.
You see it. It's a Guy Ritchie movie. If you've watched anything Guy Ritchie other than the Madonna movie, you know the guy makes good movies. He knows he keeps it dirty and gritty, and you know there's also comedy in it. But you know he tells a good story.
He also took a lot of, speaking of Game of Thrones, like I kept watching this movie and I saw like, this is from Game of Thrones, this is kind of from Lord of the Rings, this is from some other fantasy stuff, this is again from Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, and then you see Littlefinger. Okay, I saw his name. I saw Aidan Gillen on the credits, right? When the movie was beginning, I saw Aidan Gillen. I was like, why is that name so familiar? Because can we petition him to change his name into Littlefinger? Can we do that, internet? Can we start a petition for Aidan Gillen to change his name into Littlefinger? Because it only makes sense.
It could happen.
It makes sense. But then we have Charlie Hunnam. This is his second movie of this year. First one was The Lost City of Zed. He did a great job. He did a great job even here being King Arthur. Listen, I always imagined a younger version in a live action adaptation of King Arthur. I haven't seen the 2004 version. I haven't seen the 81 version. But to me, Charlie Hunnam was a great Arthur. He is a reluctant hero. He's a reluctant king. And seeing Jude Law as the villain, as his complete opposite, who is a villain king who wants more power. He's a very ambitious ruler. He doesn't let anyone stand in his way. It was great seeing those opposites conflict with each other, coming into conflict. And that drama played out really well. And I mean, speaking of Jude Law and Sherlock Holmes, and they're both Brits, and they're both in the British movies set in Britain.
When it comes to actors, I mean, yes, Charlie Hunnam, listen, I know for some reason people don't like him. Some say he didn't transition well from the TV screens to the movie screens, but you're talking about a guy who carried Pacific Rim. He played a vital part in Crimson Peak, another underrated movie starring him and Tom Hiddleston. It's a worthy watch. Then he did Lost City of Z, and you can actually saw this guy can act. Again, he went under the radar because the movie didn't make money. And then you saw it again here as King Arthur. I liked him as King Arthur.
I loved him as King Arthur.
Even when he was just a guy raised in a brothel, Game of Thrones thing, again, obviously. Yeah. I still liked him, even before he took the mantle of the King Arthur.
And what they did with, like, listen, Charlie Hunnam may not be a big box office draw for major
but
audiences.
He can carry a movie.
He can definitely carry a movie. Plus, because it's a Guy Ritchie movie and Charlie Hunnam is the star, is in the starring role, and they gave him these characters that surround him, that help him out. Because just like in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, there is not a main character in that movie. Here King Arthur is the main character, but he's surrounded with other guys who help him out to become what he's supposed to be, to go down the road that he's supposed to take, but he doesn't want to take.
Until he ends up taking it.
And because stuff happens in the movie that makes him finally make a decision to pick up the mantle, pick up the sword and go do what he is supposed to do. And speaking of the sword, Excalibur is such a legendary sword in the myths, in the fantasy genre, whether it's through books, through games, through whatever. It was great seeing an Excalibur. I don't know, I don't really remember it from the first King, but I think this was a very cool version of Excalibur, the way it was made, whether it was a prop or it was an actual sword. I'm sure he had dull blades, just like every other prop has, but it was cool seeing it light up, heat up, and just, you know, it was tossed, it was its own character in the movie too, because it got tossed, not tossed around, but it got, you know, passed around from one person to the other. It was in the stone, people came, all the, you know, people came, and the stuff they did with the stone in itself was really cool. And the visual effects in the movie are amazing, to say the least. And also, as we said, you mentioned David Beckham's cameo. It was very short-lived. They gave him like a few. They gave him like
Speaking of
sentences.
characters, we want to see David Beckham do more movies. I mean, he can still play soccer, but guy can act. At least when he has to yell at people to do stuff.
Well, he was a coach or something at one point.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't. Wasn't
No,
he supposed
don't
to?
go- no.
No. Okay. Whatever. Well, he was
And-
the captain. So
Yeah, but Astrid Burgess, I think her name is, she played the mage.
yeah, there was no
The main-
Merlin
the
in
main-
this movie. For
They
some
mention
reason.
him,
He gets name dropped, but
he get name drop, but he's not there. Astrid Burgess' character, she kind of acts. Merlin sent her to help King Arthur.
yeah, and there was a bunch of Game of Thrones stuff with her character too, with the whole animal thing. Yeah.
Jimon Hansen, is it
The
Yeah,
guy
Hansen.
playing the.
he plays everywhere, I mean, and we like him because he usually has the same type of roles, and he excels at him. And Eric Bana playing Uther Pendragon. I wanted to see
Dude.
more Uther. I mean, I'm a huge Eric Bana fan, so to see him in the movie was great. To have him be so short-lived
But he
was a
while
shame,
he was on the
but
screen,
even- yeah.
he was amazing.
but even the role that he played once he actually dies,
Yeah,
the role he plays with Excalibur and everything else, that was fun part.
yeah.
That was really
And there's definitely some weird stuff in the movie because there is magic in it. It is set in the fantasy world. It's not set in real world.
yeah.
So there's a lot of
But overall, it's a good movie.
enjoyable movie. There was
I don't even know how long it was, and I
it was
didn't
2
even
hours
care
long, but
because I enjoyed it.
one problem I had with the movie was a little bit there was shaky cam. Shaky cam among the action scenes. It just
Here's the thing.
but it's Guy Ritchie thing.
But they were running through the street.
I know,
and
man.
It was
I know,
realistic.
I know, yeah.
And I know why.
Even
he
in
got
the
it.
fighting scenes, there was a shaky cam in some.
Not as much.
Not
There
as
was
much, but there was some. There was
running
some.
through the streets. They kept the
No,
camera.
running through the streets,
camera
yeah.
guy was running with the actors, hence the shaking camera.
No, and I loved all the Guy Ritchieisms in this movie. I mean, there's
You
definitely
can't
more
not
style
like
over
it.
substance in some aspects, but,
But
the
it's a great
but
story.
the story is
It's a
well
great
done.
story,
The
yeah.
characters are fleshed out. It's a wholesome. Listen, it's not the perfect. It's not a perfect movie. I don't know. It's
In any
mind blowing.
aspect, I
Yeah,
guess, yeah.
you can't compare it to Lord of the Rings or I don't know. Whatever, Lord of the Rings. So but it's a wholesome movie. It gives you the beginning, the ending, the in-betweens. Characters are fleshed out. Score didn't took me out one bit, even though it's not your typical fantasy genre kind of a score. It's more like it's a modern score. So
But it fits well with the overall.
definitely,
Story, the overall movie.
I was summing it all the way back home last night. So what would you rate it?
24.
24?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit lower than that. I'm gonna go with the 20 out of 30. I think we already talked about this. I don't think
I liked
it
it.
deserves a higher score. I think it's just
Listen, it's
Normal
2
movie.
hours of entertainment. You want to watch a good movie that's. We have a saying here, but it doesn't translate well, but whatever.
which one?
If you, doesn't matter. But if
Okay.
you want to go waste 2 hours of your time, do nothing, you can go watch this movie. I didn't check my watch once. I didn't care what was
That's true.
happening outside. I was solely focused on the movie, which for me usually happens whenever I'm watching a Guy Ritchie movie. He actually draws you in, he keeps you in, and he gives you a great story for it.
Yeah.
Of course, if you want to go out looking for it, this is wrong, you'll find a ton of stuff that's wrong with it. But
No,
overall,
there's ton of stuff in this movie that's
but overall, if you just watch the movie for what it is, you're gonna enjoy it.
yeah.
Hence the 24.
Yeah. Also, yeah, that's it for this review. Well, we'll see you guys soon. Beige Bros.